we can go ahead and get started. I'm going to turn it over to Rebecca real quick because she's got some announcements to make.
Hey, everybody. So we had our virtual medallion awards last week on Friday, and we were very blessed this year again with some awards. And I just want to congratulate our chapter. The 2019 board definitely rocked last year, and I appreciate all their hard work and everything that they did to contribute. First of all, in the student competitions, the University of Alabama's Capstone Agency won 5 awards of merit, 8 awards of excellence, and 3 medallion awards. And then for the Planck Center also won an award of excellence, and that was headed up by our former president, Jessica White. So congratulations to her and that team. For the PRCAWA chapter, for our chapter, we won 4 third-place awards. So we placed, for the Chapter of the Year Cody Awards, we placed in accreditation, programs, PR education, and chapter management. And so I'm really excited for our team, and that's a wonderful thing that we were able to do to pull through. This year is going to be the year of the asterisk, so it'll be fun to put our Cody Awards together for this year and see how we can manage that. But I'm really proud of everything we did last year. And the biggest announcement that we have is for Leslie Bruinton, who is the Vice President of Students for our chapter. And she won the Philip R. Forrest Jr. Professional Achievement Award. So that's like the highest honor you can get. It was so cool to have her be recognized in that way. And so she will now move on to the same award category for SPRF, and hopefully we'll know the results of that in the next couple of weeks, sometime mid-September, I believe. So congratulations, everybody, for putting in another great year and for us winning the awards. And I heard that the state board president, Wade Berry, wants to hand deliver all of the awards this year because he's getting a little stir crazy, staying, in his house, working from home. So we may have those hand delivered, and if so, we'll have some photo ops there. But otherwise, thanks again, everybody, for your hard work, and I really appreciate it. Congratulations.
Yay.
Yay.
Okay, well, thank you, Rebecca. Appreciate that. And so with no further ado, Susan, I'll let you take over from here.
All right. Hey, good to see everybody today. Excuse me. So our guest today is Rick. Extra points if anybody knows how to pronounce his last name. This is Rick Willett, and again, just like when with Finney a few months ago, I thought his name was Finney. I had no idea his name was Daryl. So with Rick, everybody knows him as Rico. So that's what I thought his name was for the longest time. I had the pleasure of knowing Rick for about 10 years. I used to work for him, and then I worked with him. And I'm really appreciative of him joining us today. Rick's the director of the communications for the Catholic Diocese of Memphis in Tennessee. In his position, he's responsible for directing the planning, development, and implementation of faith-based communication strategies, systems, and tools for effective internal and external communications. The Catholic Diocese consists of 48 parishes and has about 70,000 parishioners across that area. The way I met Rick was during his 33 years at International Paper when he was the chief communications leader for industrial packaging, which was IP's largest business. And in that role, he had about 20 direct reports and worked with about 25,000 employees to keep them informed and educated. Rick and his wife, Chrissy, have 2 daughters who were grads at Ole Miss and Tennessee, but we'll forgive them for that. And they're very active in volunteering for several faith-based organizations in the area. So some of you may have heard me mention the only downside that I really know about Rick is he's a Notre Dame fan. I've been working on him for years, so we're going to get him to say Roll Tide eventually. So Rick's here today to talk to us about communicating up to management and then how to disseminate those messages through multiple layers. So Rick, I will hand it over to you.
All right, and as I get to talking, if you can, you get extra points if you can tell where I'm from, because I'll tell you right now, I was born north of Tupelo, Mississippi. As I say words like international paper and car and park, and so you'll get to know really fast that I'm a huge New England Patriots fan too. So, but I was a Patriots fan when they were very bad too, before they got really good. Now we'll see going forward, right? Because now they've actually got one of your quarterbacks from Alabama, Cam Newton. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Rick, you must be a Southie. Are you a Southie?
Yeah. I'm from Maine, actually, but I spent a lot of time with friends in Boston, and that's been a great time. But have actually been south with international paper for Susan, basically my whole career. And
yeah, all the time that I've known you. So
yeah, my mother thinks that I'm very Southern with my accent, but I don't think anybody else does. What do you guys think?
you may not fit into Tuscaloosa all that well. So.
Well, I got to tell you what, actually, I retired from IP at 58 years old, and I thought I was just going to chill out and do some fun things and consult a little bit on the side, and started consulting a little bit with the diocese, and ended up connecting with the bishop here in Memphis. And lo and behold, there were things going on that he just needed me every day for. And I just thought it was a cool opportunity. And at the same time, I'm working with them. I get to coach the diocese football team. So I'm excited about that because, so you all better be nice to me, we actually have the #1 recruit in the nation. So you have to look that up. His name is Walter Nolan, Nolen, defensive tackle. He's 6'6", 300 pounds. And he's like the size of J.T. Watts. He's not like a big, heavy kid. He's a big, good physical kid, like, basically the ones that you've had coming out of Alabama anyhow. So he'd fit in real good with Alabama. But I will tell you this, he was walking around practice the other day with an LSU hat on. But we'll try to steer him in a different way, okay? So 33 years with IP, spent a lot of time with many leaders, as Susan did. And, I have to say, now working, I've just worked for the diocese here for about 6 months. I retired last summer, took summer off last year, and then I started in with the bishop. But it's really almost no difference working for a corporation and working for a diocese when I guess, as I said to Susan, and my wife doesn't like me to say this, neither does my mother. I said, I used to work for a VP, an SVP, and a CEO. Now I work for a bishop, a pope, and God. Hey, better not say that very often. My mother doesn't like that at all. But it's really no different. And I'll say 4 things, and then I don't know if they'll go along with what I'm about to present exactly. So know that I'm very extroverted, and sometimes ping, 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 and we still get to the same place that some people might be going, well, why didn't we do it like this? So I will say these 4 things with working with leaders and understanding. And the other thing I'll say before I get going is, you probably know all this stuff already, and it's probably real basic, and it's probably, you're like, okay, I knew that, but I like getting involved in these meetings and participating in them and listening, because it's just reminders. It's good reminders for us saying, okay, I'm on the right path. I'm doing the right things with my leaders. And so if I'm repeating something you already know, or we go through this, just bear with me. It's just giving you some basic facts around things about my experience working with international paper leaders throughout the years, 33 years, and also now working with the bishop and all his clergy, all his priests and deacons. And the 4 things are, be principle based, keep your principles intact all the time, and then get to know these leaders, get to know them, get a good feel of them. Sometimes you end up, getting with a leader that they're just starting in the role, or you're jumping into a role that they're already in. But get to know the leaders, understand the business. As I tried to understand each and every business of IP, now I'm trying to, I'm not just a consultant for, for the diocese. I'm actually understanding the business of a diocese and how the diocese operates. And then, there's going to be things along the way where you're going to, mistakes are going to be made, or things are going to happen. And as I always tell my daughters, and you've heard the cliche of, there's a solution to every problem: adapt and overcome. So really, be principle based, know your leaders, understand the business, and always look to adapt and overcome. There's always a solution to the problem. So with that, I'll that's kind of my starting point in talking about those four things. Now, Susan, do they have the deck, or how do I do that? Do I just go over it? Oh. I think you're on mute. Somebody on mute?
Hey, sorry about that. Do you want me to share my screen? I've got it ready to go.
Yeah, you can share it.
Okay.
Is it there?
Suzanne, I think you may have to give me control. Oh, here we go. Okay.
It's just 4 or 5 slides.
Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay.
Now, are you going to push it forward, or do I?
Yeah, I'll push it forward.
Okay. So just go to the first slide. And again, as I talked about, be principle based, know your leaders, understand the business. And I will emphasize that just a bit more. Understand the business. It's so important to understand the business that you're in to help these leaders. And I'll give an example of that as we go along here, where I think it fits in, and then adapt and overcome. But anyhow, on this first slide, be real and participate. Come prepared for your leaders. Don't go in there going, okay, well, let's see what he wants or she wants me to do today. Bring your ideas and capabilities, convey that, that attitude, that energy, and show humility. Now, remember, I gave you the basis of know your leaders. You got to know when to hold them and fold them in what I'm saying here. Some leaders like you to come out and, and they'll want you to list, here's what we've got going on. Others want to, take the lead and tell you what they think they need, what they'd like to see. But you always have to come prepared and be able to answer questions that they might have. And then, you have others that, quite frankly, you have to almost convince them that how important communication is. And I've had that throughout the years. Luckily, the last 3 leaders that we've had within IP, Susan and I have worked with, they believed in communication. So we didn't have a hard time with that. But early on, in past years, communication wasn't considered the, real important item on different leaders' agendas. So you had to work through that. So that's why you always come prepared, bring your ideas and capabilities. I'm sure each of you are extremely talented, and you shouldn't hold back on your capabilities and convey, that, and some like that real big, get up and, attitude and energy, and then some like you to be a little bit more reserved. I mean, you just got to know how to work with your, with your leaders, and then, show humility. I'm still learning things in communications that, after, now 34, 35 years, that, sometimes I think, geez, why didn't I already know that? Or why did I make, why did I say that or do something? I guess on humility, and I was talking to the players the other day about it, as I'm the quarterback coach for the diocese team. I go into every media interview like it's my first interview. I always do that. I never get too sure of myself. And that's how I want them to be on that field. Never too sure of themselves, to have that inner arrogance about you that you can get the job done, but you should have humility to know that, boy, I've got to be prepared and ready to go each time. So go to the next slide, Susan. And that's connect with people. Make sure that the leaders know that you are connected with everybody out there. And that's how you develop that relationship, or you're able to speak to your leaders, and you'll know they want answers to questions, and they want to know what's going on out there. So make sure you're connecting with a lot of different people, and don't think they need to come to you. Get to know your folks out there, and then you're communicating more effectively than with your leaders. Listen to your leaders as to what they do want, but at the same time, make sure that once you're listening to them, I think what you'll hear is they want to make sure that you're connected to everybody out there, and you're another, your ears, your arms for them. And be an advocate of the organization for them. Be an advocate of them as leaders, and make sure they know that there's, will you love every leader that you work for? No, but they're not in those roles because they hadn't done something really good throughout their careers. So get to be an advocate of them, and be fair, direct, and honest with them. And that almost didn't put that in there because that goes without saying. And then, help them, and I think they'll like this, learn to tell a story with structure, and help them do that. A lot of them don't know how to do that. The business I was in within International Paper, a lot of them, as Susan will know, were engineers or accountants, and not to say that, they don't know how to tell a story or they're not very good at it. It's just that that's not what they went to school for, and understood, like we understand communications and how important it is to connect with somebody by telling a story and having some sort of structure to it. Go to the next one, Susan. And then, focus and set priorities. Make sure that they know that you've got a set of priorities. Somebody came to me one time and said, well, I didn't know you wanted me to do objectives. And yeah, it's my responsibility as a leader, and it's their responsibility as the upper leadership or executives of the company to say, we've got to put these together, but don't wait on them to do it. Where the business is going. There's a 5-year plan. There's a 1-year plan. Based on those things right there, start putting together and take the initiative to put together projects, prioritize them, then there's focus on the projects, the opportunities, the issues, on minimize distractions. With leaders, don't go to them with just the problem. I think what you always want to do is go to your leader with, here's an issue, but here's how I think we can get it resolved. They might come up with some other suggestions for you, but don't ever go to them and say, we got this big issue and I just don't know what to do with it. You always have to come and make sure that, and so minimize the distraction for them, because they've got so much going on in their world. And then by prioritizing what you're doing, gets them, remember, most of them do think very linear, and some communication people like myself think like this. And so you got to kind of help, you got to get there for them, because they're not going to want to be hearing this. They're going to want to be hearing, what their priorities are and how you're working on them, and what the issues are and how you're resolving them. So that's, I think, also very important. If you want to go to the next one, Susan. And then be a critical thinker. Hopefully you are sitting in the leadership meetings at the lead teams. We would call them, in International Paper, they would lead teams. Here at the diocese, they have director meetings. It's the leadership team. Make sure you're a big participant in that meeting, not just, and not taking notes. Sometimes I go into meetings, they say, there's a communication person, take the notes, right? That was really early on. And don't be that, don't be that unless that's the exact way to help, I guess. But you need to be a participant and have your ideas front and center like everybody else. And it goes to what I had said on the kind of the 4 basic areas. Know the business that you're in, know the organization that you're a part of, understand it so that you can give some sound judgment, exercise the best judgment, sound judgment on it. So dig beneath the surface on everything. Always be, what leaders like you to do is be able to see around the corner, see what's ahead for the pandemic going forward. What do you think for our company? What's ahead as far as where we are with earnings, where we are with, most importantly, safety, or where are we with our people? You should have some answers to that through your communication efforts, and see the big picture. Let them know that you do see the big picture, that you're not just seeing directly out in front of you, that you are seeing, have that peripheral, I call it peripheral view, being able to see everything. Leaders really like the fact that they have somebody that sees the big picture, and it's not just their vice president, or it's not just a supply chain person. It's actually the communication person, digging deep, finding out what's out there, and then looking at everything from a very big picture. And then and know the impact outside your area, and that is and I had talked about that earlier as far as understand the business. I've been in meetings before where with other communication folks, when we're having a problem with safety, or having a big time problem with earnings, or there might be an environmental issue, and all of a sudden the communication person just brings up something about a United Way event, or some sort of other nonprofit event that they might be involved with, or even something that they want to get done that is on their list of make sure we've got another community advisory council. There's always times and places for that, because as companies, as dioceses here, you always got to give back to the community. But you got to know when there's a good time to talk about those things. When there's a big safety issue, big environmental issue, big earnings issue, make sure you're digging into that with everybody else, and then you can come back with your other things that are still important. I'm not saying those are important as everything else, because again, we always said with an international paper, we couldn't be in the communities unless the community let us. We couldn't operate there unless they let us. So you always got to deal with a community advisory council giving money out, but know when it's the best time to talk about it. And be careful about that with your leadership, because they'll think, while everybody else is zeroed in on the issue, you're over here in some other land, and that sometimes doesn't work good. And quite frankly, I've made that mistake before as I've moved through my career, and hopefully I got better at it through the years before I decided to retire. And then exercise the best judgment, and that goes along with what I just said. And I think, Susan, go to the next one. And show them that you can get things done. Get started, get people in the boat with you. You're not going to be able to get anything done by yourself. It's about the team. I think the one thing I've actually worked with leaders on and talked to them about is using the word we and not I as much as they possibly can. Use I am very proud of this organization, and then make sure to use the we when we say we got to get better. It can't be I need you to do this. I think we need to get it done. I am very happy with all of you. I think that's a time you can use I, but getting people in the boat is not only, I'm not only talking about it in terms of people that need to help you and you need to work as a team, because you probably do all that really well. It's teaching your leadership that way, talking to them about that. And I think that they, because you're an advocate of them, you're trying to get them to be adaptable to everybody out there, that they think they're really, great leaders doing wonderful things, understand the business well. You're their extension. And so you've got to make sure that they feel like it's not just, themselves doing it, but actually the team, their leadership doing it with them. And when I say get things done, go make things happen. Don't wait on anybody and say, well, I better wait for this, or I better wait on that, or I haven't been asked to do that yet. Get out there and get it done. It's the old thing of, get up early, go get it done, and then everybody, has a wonderful evening, wonderful weekends. But go make it happen. And then, the last slide here is a leader's job is to look into the future. And that's the bottom line, and to see the organization not as it is, but as it can become. And you as communication leaders need to help them get there all the time, and think about that all the time, and not just about the here and now. They've got to be looking around the corner. And I have seen, especially over my past probably 15 to 20 years working with these C-suite people, is that they like to have a communication person that sees ahead and knows what's going on, and then still can get the day-to-day things done. I think Susan would attest to that, and that's why she was so successful at IP and went on to work for Westerfeld like she's doing now, is because she saw that. She always looked ahead and got things done. And then, going back to the 4 items I mentioned before, and I always talk about that first, being very principle-based and not losing sight on their principles, because as all of us know, working with the media, the minute you don't really tell the truth, it's game over. It's game over for you. And then then you don't have a relationship with the media, and you don't have a relationship with everybody else. And that's why it's always good to be principle-based. And what was actually really good about IP, and I think Susan can attest to it, and then she's gone on to do it at Westerfeld, is that they never asked us to say something that, wasn't the truth. And that was always good to be a part of a company that, that made sure that you, they didn't take away from your principles, that, principle based. And, if there was something that they felt like, if Susan and I would have felt like there was something we shouldn't talk about, or it wasn't the truth, we wouldn't have done it. And the company wouldn't have held us back on that. So we were fortunate to work for some very good leaders that thought the same way we did on being principle based. So with that, I'll open it up for questions. I hope I didn't take too long. It's 12:30 now. Questions on that? And again, I talked about the 4 areas that are kind of my base, and then these other areas kind of woven into that overall. So I hope that made some sense to you. And I hope you understood me with this deep Southern accent too.
Rick, I'll start off. Talk about a little bit about having to give leaders news that they may not want to hear, but that they need to hear.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, and that's making sure that, again, you don't color it in. I mean, let them know directly what, where the issue is, what's going on with it, and then have a solution. Tell them, say, this is what's going on. This is not, the best situation we have. Take it for whether it's a safety issue or an environmental issue. Now, here's what I think we ought to do. And here's the other part. Be prepared to go in there. Talk to other people before you go into your CEO, because they can always give you your CEO, your SVP, or whoever it may be. But make sure that you get kind of the full picture. It's kind of all the slides I went over. Make sure you stay principle based. Make sure you get the full picture first. Work with others on it. Then you go in there and you give it to them straight, and then say, well, here's what I think a solution is. And I just haven't thought this up myself. I've talked to others. Now they might come back and have some additional things, so that's why they are the leader of the organization. And I think that you just, I think that's the best way to approach it, because if you try to kind of sidestep it in any way, shape, or form, you'll end up with that issue just kicking the can down the road, and that's what you don't want.
Who else has a question?
Takes me a minute to unmute. I have a question. When it comes to crisis communications and sending out somewhat negative information externally, sometimes you tend to deal with leaders, or even just not even necessarily leaders, but just an overall tone within your organization or with a board who don't purposely want to paint a rosier picture, but just aren't necessarily willing to accept that things aren't quite the way that they are in reality. How do you work to get people all on the same page?
Well, another good question. And then the first thing I would say is, don't assume that the leaders that you work with talk to each other. Right, Susan? I mean, sometimes they're just not talking to each other. So you have to make sure that you have and I've got a big whiteboard up here that I actually put together just for the diocese, because you have different facets of leaders that you've got to say, okay, I've got to talk to these folks first. So set that up where, okay, I got to make sure the board knows, I've got to make sure these senior leaders know, I got to make sure the next level of leadership knows, then my superintendents, and you make sure that you've got that all down, and that there is a channel of distribution. When you really get good at your communication, you get this real good communication network going, and then you know that, so it's not just about communicating, it's about making sure you have that network. So first thing I would do is make sure you've got a good network in place, that when you do have a crisis, you make sure that everybody across the board will end up knowing about it before they end up reading it in the paper or driving to work and hearing about it on a radio or the television, or now faster than ever, social media. So that's why you have to even probably have texts ready, or whatever else you have for phone numbers, and yourself out there on social media. You have to prepare for all that now, because things get out there, so fast. And then you've got to kind of say, okay, am I the one to be the spokesperson on this right now? And then when do I really bring in my leadership? Susan and I got very involved in a explosion at our PRCAWA facility a few years ago. And, we had the spokesperson out there first for the mill, but then when we knew the right time to bring in the mill manager, then we knew the right time to bring in his vice president. And then we talked about at some point bringing the CEO in when we had to. But you got to know, when you bring the top person in, if they say something wrong, you got no one else to go back to. So that's why you try to that's why you've got to, you're not being dishonest, you're not keeping information from anybody, but as you put together your key messages and you convey them, you might have to always tweak them a little bit. So you got to make sure you're spot on when you're trying to get your overall leader out there. And that's why sometimes, we end up being the kind of the guinea pig for it, or we're the first ones to be speaking, because we might have to tweak something, and they can say, yes, that's my spokesperson. They, that's what they knew at the time, and now here's a little bit more that we do know, and they can speak to it from their level of leadership. So I hope that helps out. I hope I'm answering the question. But I think, just trying to make sure when there's a crisis or any other big time announcement, trying to get to as many of your people as you can possibly can, so they don't end up hearing it someplace else, is so important. Because if you don't do that, they're going to end up going to the newspaper for their information, or they're going to end up going to somebody else for their information instead of you, because you didn't get it out to them fast enough. So you just got to be, and now it's just so fast. I mean, I'm even seeing that in the diocese, for, when we communicate something about a new priest coming aboard, it's already out on social media, and people are saying, well, Rick, where's the information? And so it's all very interesting, and you know, you gotta keep up with it all. At 58 years old, man, I'm telling you, I'm on top of that social media right now. not like my daughters, but I don't do. They're into, what do they got now? They got the TikTok thing, and they got Snapchat. But I'm more good at, I'm getting into Instagram and I got the Facebook, got the Instagram. I don't think the diocese wants to get into TikTok right yet. So, you know, we'll have to hold back on that. But I tell you, our bishop is very big on Facebook. He's very big on Instagram and Twitter. And actually that's good, because he, you know, the messaging that we have is important to get out there from, you know, his perspective. And he's trying to hit a whole other new generation.
Who else has a question? We have time for another few questions. You know, one that I was thinking about, and I know you've had experience in this, we all work with leaders who have different levels of communication experience and skill. So what's the best way to work with a leader to improve their ability to communicate, especially when they may overestimate their skill at doing that?
Yeah, and that is providing some very good presentation, Susan, that we've put together in the past on media training. And within that media training, they'll think, oh, geez, I want to spend 8 hours doing media training. But within that media training is actually a part in there on developing key messages, developing and delivering key messages. And they end up really appreciating that in the end. So if you can get them for an hour just to talk about, hey, can I just sit down with you and talk about how to develop a key message? Or, you know, here's a letter that you put together. Let me show you how we pull out of that letter the 3 or 4 key messages, and then we show you how your leaders are developing it, are then conveying it. You know, it'd be helpful if I could help you there, and being able to pull out those key messages yourself and then convey them. So I think it's always important to even though some of them think they're really good at it, you got to be able to get that time to sit down with them and train them on developing and deliver, because again, they didn't go to school for communication. So when you talk about, hey, can you develop and deliver a key message? Oh yeah, you know, I give all kinds of different presentations. You know, in the end, we end up helping them with their presentations to the board, with their presentations to their peers, senior leaders on, you know, on the senior lead team, or to employees when you've got to speak to a whole group. I can't tell you how many times, you know, leaders have come to me after we've done just the simple, not whole day of media training, but just a simple developing and delivering key messages, and saying, you know, I never thought about it this way, but you know, it really does work. Now, what I didn't tell them, it doesn't work with your spouses at all. Because I tried to deliver a couple key messages about, you know, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And my wife said, okay, well, you know, you want teamwork and trust? Well, go over there and get that load of laundry done and fold it right now. So you know, me trying to explain to her about, I got to watch this game, or I got to do this, or I got to do that. You know, she delivered me the key messages right back. So she actually learned how to develop and deliver key messages better than I have.
I think she delivers them pretty effectively too.
Yeah, she does. You know, yeah, that's right. Exactly. I am ruled by a greater force.
Any other questions? Well, before I turn it back over to Amy, Rick, thank you so much for joining us today. I was really, you know, before I had talked with Rick months ago about having him come down and join one of our meetings, and then we had to kind of switch to this virtual like everybody else is doing. But we really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. So thank you very much. And if anybody has any follow-ups, I've got Rick's email. I'm sure he would be fine with me sharing that. So if you have any other follow-up questions, I'll be happy to provide that. So Amy, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you everyone. Great meeting. Thank you, Rick. We really appreciate you joining us today. And be on the lookout for some communication coming up. We've got some information coming up on the toolkit, hopefully coming out in the next few days. And everyone have a great week, and you'll hear from me soon. So stay dry. Have a good one.
See you later, everybody.
Thanks, Rick.
Bye-bye.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.